Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Super Feeler podcast. My name is Laurie, and I'm here with two of my favorite humans on the planet, Shane and Shannon. We are going to be talking today about dissociation as our last episode of the BPD Symptoms series, except we're going to actually do a couple more episodes to add some additional symptoms that aren't necessarily official diagnostic criteria. So, spoiler alert, there's going to be an episode about self-harm because that is distinct in a lot of ways from suicide. And when we did our suicide episode, it was hard to talk about both without conflating the two, which we thought was important not to do. So that will be an additional episode. And then we're also going to do an additional episode about a couple of additional symptoms that the European model of diagnosing what's essentially borderline personality disorder, but is actually emotionally unstable personality disorder in Europe. So we'll do a little kind of bonus episode about that. And so yeah, this is our last official BPD Symptoms series episode with two more to come. So dissociation is an interesting and confusing one to talk about. So I pulled up a few things on Google to just kind of get our conversation started because dissociation is so hard to describe. So essentially it's a feeling detached from oneself or reality, experiencing emotional numbness or having fragmented memory or identity. And this can look like a lot of different things, including, that numbness, confusion, memory loss, feeling like the world around you is foggy, unreal, or strange. And then sometimes psychotic-like symptoms, which I do want to talk a little bit about because I think that I've experienced those in a few places as well. Also, just want to note, Kat is not with us, but on the recording, they're very much still with us on Earth. But their solo episode is coming out next week. Dissociation is a huge component of their story. So if you want Kat's perspective on this, I would definitely encourage you to check out next episode, which is Kat's solo story. Okay, dissociation. Who wants to start with their thoughts on this and what it looks like?
I describe my dissociative episodes, which I haven't experienced them a lot lately, but especially when I was living in Oregon. I describe it almost like I'm watching a movie.
Yes.
I'm watching everybody else live life. This movie called Life.
Around you.
And I'm just sitting here kind of just watching it.
And can you see yourself in that movie?
No,
Does that make sense?
In the movie.
You're not in it. Okay.
I'm not in the movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes I've heard people describe it as they're watching a movie that they're also in, if that makes sense. So they're kind of observing themselves in the world as well, which is so interesting too. Okay, so you're in a movie theater, you're watching life around you, and I assume you can't control anything that's happening in that movie. Okay. Yeah. Is that scary, or what does that feel like?
I think it was scary at first, but then I was having I think I had such a prolonged dissociative episode that I got used to it. Essentially.
How long is prolonged?
Months.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. And it would stop for a period of time and then it would start up again for a couple months. And I don't know. For people that have listened to my episode on here, my solo episode, I was under a lot of stress in Oregon. I was facing a lot of stress. Housing insecurity, food insecurity, job insecurity. So all these insecurities, right? Managing my
also
transition.
During COVID. Yeah, managing your transition. So many things.
Yeah, so many things. So that's what I think, caused such prolonged episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you find that to be helpful or harmful during that prolonged episode? Because in my experience, dissociation can be both.
I found it very isolating. It's very isolating. And I remember describing it to my friend, and they were the one who pointed it out to me that it was dissociation. Kat's here. Hey, Kat.
Yay. Hi, Kat. I'm so happy you're here.
Hey.
So, yeah.
So your friend pointed out to you that it was dissociation.
Yeah. Because I don't think I didn't realize it.
Had you never experienced it before, or it was just never experienced to that extent?
I don't think I experienced it to that extent before.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to describe to somebody else.
Yeah. And in a weird way, it felt I think ultimately it was harmful. Like I said, it was very isolating.
Mm-hmm.
but it felt safe in the same way. Like, I think I was doing it in order to like protect myself from all of these stressors, right? And not, I guess, sitting with them fully. Because if I did, I'd probably have a complete breakdown. Like, I don't know. So, yeah.
I mean, it is truly like a trauma related coping mechanism, right? And it's whether or not it takes over to a detriment. And like you said, feeling so isolated. But on occasion, sometimes you got to just detach for a little bit to be able to function when you're going through so many stressors. So I think later on we'll talk about what it looks like to try and come out of dissociation and try and make it so that you're not in those prolonged states. But maybe let's hear from everybody else about what dissociation looks like for them first, and then we'll loop back around. So Shannon, how about you? Is this something you experience?
Yes, definitely. Don't think initially I identified it as dissociation. I had really specific dissociation during trauma. And so that's kind of what I pictured that it looked like. And that was literally above your body watching what was happening to you, but not present in your body at all. So basically just a passenger to whatever was occurring. But then as I started to understand it more, I actually realized what a big part of my I'm going to say everyday world, but it's a bit like Shane. Like I would have periods and then
Right.
I might not experience it for a while and then it might come back again. I would still say that during those times, it was a mild form of dissociation, often feeling detached from people and experiences, not necessarily from reality. And I may have mentioned it here on the podcast before about a time where I was sitting on the beach and I burst into tears. It was the first time that I'd felt joy for a really long time. And I think that was after a prolonged period of dissociation. So, I mean, I have that normal, that amnesia thing, like where I can be driving along the road and then go, shit, where am I or what am I meant to be doing?
Which is so human. Everybody has that. Like it not
Yes.
Yeah. There's a word for that even. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
Yeah. So those things occur all the time. And even though I haven't been diagnosed with ADHD, it's been flagged a few times. And I wondered if I've always kind of put it into this, is that just my attention span? The fact that I wander off. And so I don't know exactly where that sits for me, if it's an attention span thing or if it is this mild state of dissociation that occurs quite often. So I can't give you a clear answer around that because I don't actually know myself yet.
That's so fair. I feel like a lot of people probably feel that way too, because it's like, yeah, it's truly so hard to describe.
Shannon, so you bring up, I think, a good point. If I'm correct to my knowledge, that people who do have ADHD have like a higher risk of dissociation. So there's definitely a connection there.
I was actually really interested to get your perspective on it because of that. I don't understand, obviously, because it was brought up at the same time, like the ADHD stuff was flagged at the same time as the borderline was. I was like, I can only just deal with one thing at a time. So I haven't really chased that diagnosis. It's not off the table. It may come later on. But yeah, and I know because I also have co-occurring complex PTSD that it's also a symptom of that. So I think sometimes when there are these, different things working alongside of each other, it's kind of hard to figure out which thing is this attached to and is it even disassociation? Because I think everybody at some point drives along the road and goes, oh, how did I get here? Like that's a really common thing that most people would experience at some point in their lives. It's when, and that's I've gone from that extreme to the other extreme where I'm doing the things, but I don't feel like I'm in my body. And probably at the worst time of that, like I actually experienced audible hallucinations and some of those co-occurring things as well, which I'd never experienced before. And it's only ever happened a couple of times. But it's incredibly terrifying because like this was prior to my diagnosis. And I was like, I'm actually going crazy. That's how I felt at the time, because it's almost like an otherworldly experience when your body's moving and it's doing the things and doing, like I was doing laundry the first time I had an audible hallucination. And so your body's going through these procedures, but you are completely detached from the things that are occurring. So it's a really hard thing to be able to articulate, I think.
Well, and I think those auditory hallucinations, any hallucinations and psychosis like symptoms, it just gives me so much more compassion or empathy. Not that I don't have a lot already, but for people who struggle with things like schizophrenia, because like you, Shannon, I've had, I want to say 3 like distinct instances of visual hallucinations. And I think that I don't think I have psychosis, right? I don't as a symptom, but I definitely have seen things that weren't there 3 times. And I will never forget it because it starts to make you question your entire reality. So there was I'll just explain the 3 instances because I think they're interesting and I don't know. So 2 of them were the same, which is very interesting to me. So I used to work at McDonald's, very fast-paced environment. I loved it. I miss working at McDonald's, honestly. It was like my favorite job. But I was standing, like I know exactly where I was standing. And you guys know me, I'm not a very visual person. So the fact that I remember these things so vividly is actually really interesting to me. Standing there kind of in between the drive-thru and grabbing orders and whatever. And I looked out the drive-thru window and I was like, oh my God, there's a car on fire. And I just like panicked. Obviously, there was a car completely engulfed in flames through the drive-thru window. And everybody was like, no, there's not. What are you talking about? Which is so weird. And what's super weird about it is I don't remember anything before or after that. I have no recollection of why I was so stressed to then see something that wasn't there, or the reaction of everybody around me when they realized that nothing was there. Not a clue. So that one happened twice. And then the other one, I was leaving something. I don't know what, but I know exactly where we were driving. My mom, my sister, and I was in the front seat, like passenger seat. And I looked down an alley just while we happened to be driving by. And I saw a dog that was the size of a horse. Huge. And I was scared of dogs when I was a kid. So to me, and I was probably like a teenager at this point, like young teenager. And I was terrified because obviously there's a dog that's the shape of a horse outside down this alley. And I freaked out and I made my mom drive around the block because I was convinced that this thing was there and that nobody else saw it. And obviously there are no such things as dogs that are the size of horses. That was not true. And then I just randomly, another instance that was so similar to this, but it was real, which also then starts tricking your brain, is just a couple months ago, I was in a place called Saskatchewan visiting family. And so we have little bunnies here, right? You got little tiny bunnies. They're like this big and they jump around and they're really cute. Well, in this province, they're called, I think, prairie rabbits or something. And they're like huge, like the size of a large cat / a medium-sized dog. And so I looked down the road and it was nighttime and Aaron and I were going for a walk and I saw this ginormous bunny that to me, I'd never seen anything like it. And I freaked out because I thought I was having another one of these like giant dog situations. Turns out, no, Aaron saw it too. It was just like straight up the biggest, most scary looking rabbit I've ever seen in my entire life. But it really, I mean, that was probably 15 years more that after I saw that giant dog that didn't exist. And I still questioned my reality that there was this giant bunny in the middle of the road, you know? So yeah, the dissociation or the stress related dissociation and paranoia, or sorry, let me say that again. The stress related psychosis features is a very interesting component of dissociation because I don't think it happens very often to a lot of people that I've talked to, but when it does, it's very memorable. They also talk about paranoia as part of dissociation, which honestly, like to me, almost feels like it should be its own thing because I haven't met a person with BPD that isn't slightly like maybe not diagnosably paranoid, but a bit more paranoid than the average person, whether it be in relationships or friendships or predicting the future, like anxiety related things. So yeah, I just find that to be a really interesting one. In terms of kind of classic dissociation symptoms for me, I didn't used to think that this was a symptom that I experienced. And then kind of like you, Shannon, I started really thinking it through more, and then also talking to more people with the disorder and realizing that dissociation is so hard to describe that I was like, oh no, I definitely experienced this. So what this often will look like to me is similarly that feeling nothing. Just I will be so stressed that my body will just shut down, essentially. The last time this happened, something bad happened and I just completely shut down. But I was on my way to Costco when this happened, and I just stood there frozen for probably half an hour. Just no ability to do anything, feel anything. And it's this empty, tingly feeling for me. It's very tingly. And my body just kind of can't move. I don't know if anybody else experiences that, but I'm so frozen and tingly that I actually won't be able to move my body for a long period of time at some points. And so I've ended up like just kind of collapsing on the floor essentially many times in my life and not being able to get up for hours because I just can't move. It's so fascinating because could I move? Right? I probably like physically, I'm sure I could move, but I can't make myself move. I just am frozen in space. And it just goes to show the power of mental health on physical symptoms. You know, this, of course I can move, Laurie. Like you can move all of your limbs. You're totally fine. There's nothing physically wrong with you. But your emotions are so strong in this moment that your body has decided to just completely give up to protect yourself. And I sometimes I really don't mind that, in that I'm actually kind of really good in certain stressful situations because my body is good at shutting that out. And as long as it doesn't get to the point where I can't move, then it's fine usually. But I have been thinking a lot about kind of playing in my head this situation of if I were to get fired and my office is an hour and a half away. I've never been fired in my life, but hypothetically, if I were to get fired, my office is an hour and a half away from home, if not 2 hours, depending on traffic. And I don't know how I would get home because I actually don't think I could walk. And I for sure couldn't drive. And so it's almost like fear of such intense dissociation is the biggest thing that I worry about if I were to get fired one day, because I know that my body would not be able to function. So yeah, anyways, that was a bit rambly, but it's just so fascinating how our bodies and brains work to protect ourselves, really. And usually for me, that's hours, not days, but I could definitely think of a couple times where it was probably more than 24 hours, not weeks or anything like that.
There was a time once where I was doing an art class. I used to run a business where it was like a paint and sip style thing, but we also had like a community group.
Fun.
Where people would just come in and we'd be all arty and crafty together. And I had a disassociation episode during this, and my business partner, I said to her, I need you to take me to the hospital. And she did, because I wasn't okay. And at the time, I'd also been having these episodes, which at the time we were putting down to anxiety, where I'd actually lose feeling in my hands and my feet and my lips. And I didn't know if it was a circulation thing. We notched it down to anxiety. It was actually so bad one day that I fainted in the car.
Oh, wow.
My son was in the car with me, and like I knew something was happening, and I'd started to pull over to the side of the road, and he was able to put the handbrake on and call Scott.
Scary.
And so these things had started to really scare me. But when I, spoke to medical professionals, they'd said to me, oh, it's anxiety. And this day I went to the ER because I just did not understand what was going on in my body. I felt removed. I couldn't think or feel or plan or know what to do next. It was quite terrifying. And the doctor there, because at the time we were thinking that I was dealing with a generalized anxiety disorder. And so I explained it to him with the language that I understood at the time. He wasn't getting it. It didn't add up. I remember going into the bathroom and I just needed 5 minutes, and I stood and looked in the mirror, and I didn't know who I was.
Mm.
It was like the person I was looking back at wasn't me. And I had this overwhelming sense. And I've not ever been someone who has been a self-harmer in a physical sense. And I had this overwhelming desire to like smash my head to pieces against the wall. And I could literally see it playing out in my head, me doing this. And I don't know if it was frustration or if it was just I wanted to feel something. I can't explain what it was in that moment. And so I didn't do that. And I went back and I explained to him what was going on. And he told me something that nobody had ever explained to me before. And he said, sometimes when your nervous system is overloaded, he said it can be like a computer running with 50 tabs at the same time. And nothing works properly because every part is trying really hard to do its job. And so then the computer just shuts down because there's no other option. And the way that he framed that to me at the time made a lot of sense. I don't think it explains dissociation in its entirety, but that concept to be able to simplify it of whatever this is, and I know it's different for every single person, but whatever this is that's happening for me is too much. Whatever the processing centers in my brain are that need to, manage all of these stresses are not working anymore because it's too much. And so the only way for my brain to adapt is to turn them off. I don't know if that has the same ring of truth for you guys, but to me it was like the first time that somebody had kind of explained it to me where I went, now I've got a bit of a allegory for what this looks like.
Yeah, I really like that.
So I guess one of the things I forgot to mention, and Shannon, a little bit like similar to what you said, I experienced, I guess, and my therapist told me that it's called depersonalization, when you don't recognize who you are, right? I had an episode where like I can't remember what I was so upset about, but I was in my apartment and I lived alone at the time. But I think I was thinking about things from childhood, something I was triggered in that way. I can't really remember. And so I was so upset and worked up, and I remember looking down at my hands and I was like, these aren't my hands. These hands aren't mine. Whose hands are these, right? Like, and I remember being just like so upset by it. It actually kind of it made me question in that moment, like whether transitioning was the right thing for me. Because I was like, do my hands look different because of my transition? Like, is this what's going on? Like, do I just like not recognize myself? Like, what's happening, right?
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Really, really kind of wild thing to experience. And I think I was able to calm myself down by like getting in the bath or something. So I just took a hot bath, right? And I was able to kind of get myself back down. But yeah, I just thought that was worth mentioning.
Yeah, totally. And I also want to add before I go to Kat that Shannon, the lack of feeling in your fingers, which almost, Shane, kind of reminds me of you looking at your hands and being like, whose hands are these? Sometimes I will have no feeling in my hands. Like you could probably smash my hands with a hammer and I would not notice. And sometimes I'll try really hard to like pinch myself to be like, can I feel my hands? And there's nothing, not a thing. It's wild. So Kat's here, by the way, everyone, if you didn't catch that. And Kat, just so you know, to kind of bring you up to speed, I let everybody know that your episode, all my sticky notes on my wall are my episode planning. So what's lovely is your episode is actually going to come out right after this one, which has so much information about dissociation and dissociative identity disorder. So I think that's actually amazing. But what does dissociation look like for you? And if possible, I don't know if this is possible, but outside of dissociative identity disorder related topics, if that makes sense. Can you parse those apart?
I think so.
Okay. Try. If not, that's cool. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I resonate with everything that you guys have said already. So that kind of, the identity stuff aside, the depersonalization and derealization, I've probably had since before I remember, like the not being there for certain situations, but also being there watching me not being there, knowing that it's my body doing stuff, but not feeling connected to that. And in the kind of depersonalization kind of side of that, not knowing, and I mean, for me, it's mostly flashbacks, but like not knowing which reality is real in the derealization kind of stuff. I don't as much get my body isn't real, but it's more like my body isn't mine. And then the flop kind of stuff, I get everything from that kind of fuzzy, tingly feeling all the way through kind of feeling so tense as to be rigid, but also feel like I'm shaking, if that makes any sense. And then through that into that kind of flop where it's like, like the computer's shut down, the lights are off. Like I'm sort of in there, but it's not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to have loop flashbacks when that happened, but now I can sort of be present in that lack of presence, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I think it's like the awareness of what's happening, at least for me, is really helpful, even if I can't do anything about it. At least I know that I'm not completely detached, like that it will go.
Yeah, like I sort of know that it's going to go now, whereas I used to be really worried about being stuck in it forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the highway hypnosis thing, like just driving around or just walking around, not really knowing where I'm going or why I'm going there. Yeah, all the way to, and that I think that is sort of where the line is for me. Like the other day, I was driving to like an old house that I used to live at. I realized that was happening, but then it crossed over that line into a more DID thing where I was like, I actually don't know how to get from where I am to where I need to be to go to somewhere that's appropriate to my current life. And that took a minute. And like I just pulled over and like calmed down a bit, but
like tried to reset. Just for everybody, that because the episodes are coming out in a weird order, I just want to say DID is dissociative identity disorder, which is something that, are you officially diagnosed with that now, Kat?
Not yet. I'm still waiting for I have had my assessment now, but I'm waiting for the final part of that.
Right. It was the assessment you were going to have. Okay. Either way, I think it's pretty resonates with your life. And you know, Kat's talked about this before, but dissociative identity disorder used to be known as multiple personality disorder. So if that is a new term for you, DID, that's why, because it's colloquially also still talked about as multiple personality disorder. And our episode for next week dives into that for like an hour and a half. So if that's a topic that's interesting to you, I would highly recommend. We'll do a deep dive of that next week. So you brought up a really interesting point, Kat, around, you said that this is something that you've experienced since as long as you remember. I don't know that for myself, actually, when I would have first recognized this in myself. But oftentimes dissociation will be, at least like to a very extreme extent, will be like a trauma response of some sort. So do you think that's the case for you, in that you had trauma even before you could remember that you dissociated from as a coping mechanism? And then you just realized it after the fact? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think the
Shane, how about you?
Sort of that feeling of watching myself do stuff, the first time I remember that was primary school, so like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But that sort of
Shane?
feeling comes from.
I know that I had like dissociative episodes, I guess, in childhood, particularly like when hearing my parents fight.
Right.
and me getting like really upset over that. Can't describe to you what those episodes were like, but I know that I was checked out after that. Like kind of similar to when I had the depersonalization episodes. Like I would get so worked up and have such intense emotions, be so upset that my whole nervous system would just shut down and just check out.
It's honestly kind of incredible that our brains do that, isn't it? It just goes, right? It is truly, because it just goes, actually, this is too much right now. We're going to just not. And it's great
Imagine if
in
there
some
wasn't a
ways and
reset
really
button.
awful. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think survival would be as doable if you actually had to live through all of the things that your body just automatically protected yourself from. It's incredible. Shannon, what was your first recollection of this?
I'm 100% confident to say that my dissociation is a maladaptive coping mechanism developed from trauma. I can't remember specific incidences of it occurring in childhood just on a regular day-to-day basis, but there are times definitely where I know that it occurred. I don't know if it was showing up like, while I was at school or stuff, but definitely in trauma-based situations, 100%. I was also a bit of like as a kid, and you could put this down to normal kid behavior. It's only post observation of it. But I would go deeply into imaginary play, probably very differently to other children, and in a way that I've witnessed my own children do it. So at the time, I obviously thought that was normal, but to look at it now, I would almost definitely say that it bordered on escapism.
Right.
Where that imaginary play could transport me away from my own feelings and who I was. And it felt a lot safer to be the princess in the castle or my beautiful, beautiful granddad had a wishing well in his side yard, and thousands of hours were spent making up games about what lived down the well, fighting dragons around the well, fairies in the well. And that fantasy world for me was, I would have stayed there if I could have. Yeah.
Whereas all I remember about like fantasy play is we would quote unquote play Harry Potter when I was in grade like 2 and 3. We would just reenact all the Harry Potter books and movies. And I was always the troll. I don't know what that means, but I was always the troll.
To identify with the imaginative stuff, I think actually both, now I think about it, we had like some ornamental grass on the lawn, which was really high, so we obviously filled up a little cubby inside so we could sit in there and no one would know we were there. Hours and hours sat playing in there with toys and like making stuff up and just different stories, and it would be very kind of detailed, and they would continue on for like months. But then also I used to climb up in the hedge and just sit and probably dissociate and just exist. So kind of both ends of that, actually, and probably everywhere in between.
Yeah, I guess that's one other thing that hasn't really been discussed here is just this. I don't know if I experience this more than the average person does, but this kind of lack of time in terms of you could be dissociated for a very long period of time and not notice. I've heard that from others. It's not something I experienced myself. Okay, so in terms of dissociation, we kind of know what it looks like for ourselves as best as we can describe it, which is describing a very elusive thing that changes all the time. And oftentimes we're not even super present for, which is even more funny when you're trying to describe it to others. But what do you do, if anything, to either prevent it or deal with it and come out of it when you're in it?
I don't know that I can prevent it. I think it happens before I realise.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, though, about Scott mentioning this morning when we spoke about one of the warning signs being me watching TV shows that I normally wouldn't watch. That is an indicator, because I think that that's almost a form of purposeful disassociation. When things are bad or yucky and I'm not feeling great, I'll find a thing that doesn't matter, that I don't have to feel anything about, and I'll say, watch that show. And when he's talking about it being a warning sign for me, it's to the exclusion of everything else. So I'll dive into that thing, and every spare moment I've got, that's going on in the background. So while I say I can't pick it, I think that's a form of maybe intentional disassociation where I can disconnect myself from feeling that. But as far as having warning signs of, oh, look, I'm slipping in here, it's I don't think that I have any. And as far as getting out of it, the only thing that I've found that works is piggybacking off other people. So
Just like participating and doing things with others. Yeah.
Yeah. So I try, and especially if it's something that other people are feeling really excited about, or because I do sit in that, like that empath thing where I can feel other people's emotions. And so often when I can't feel my own, I will just piggyback off someone else's. And that seems to restart the circuits. Yeah. And that's the only thing really that I've found that works, because often when I am in it, it takes me a while to realise. So it's not like I can go, oh yeah, like I'm having did you say highway hypnotherapy, Kat? Was that what it was?
Hypnosis, I think.
Highway hypnosis.
Which is a genius term for it, honestly.
So good.
Yeah.
So like those little parts, and I can go, oh yeah, and I can catch myself in that. And the transition back from that is quite simple and easy. But those bigger times where I've experienced, the more concerning stuff, sometimes I can go to sleep and wake up the next day and it might look a little bit different. But then there's times where I think it's lasted for weeks, like Shane was saying before, where I've been completely detached from feeling anything. And then when I start to feel things again, it's a bit of a surprise or a shock.
Just want to provide a little bit of context, and then I'll move on to you, Shane. Shannon was talking about an episode we recorded this morning for a brand new mini-series that I guess I will talk about now because I may as well, where after the BPD Symptoms series is out, which will be in a couple weeks, or maybe a month and a half, we will be doing a BPD relationships series where couples come on and talk about their experience together. So Shannon interviewed Aaron and I. Aaron's my husband. I just interviewed Shannon and her husband, Scott. And then there's going to be at least 4 or 5 more couples. So keep an eye out for that too when this mini-series is over. That's what Shannon was talking about. If you're like, what conversation are you talking about?
Man, I really wish I could have been a part of the series, Laurie.
I know, me too. I mean, we could do one about breakups if you want. That would be an interesting one.
Actually, breakups are like a huge trigger for me.
Mm-hmm. So I think they are for like 99% of people. Yeah.
Right. I mean, this last one just put me in the hospital. So
you were in the hospital? Oh, Shane, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I feel like an asshole.
Oh my God, no, you're fine. I didn't put it out there to anybody. So like, I was going to post like grippy sock vacation, but
then it's just like, yeah, that's fair. I mean, honestly, I've done that too. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's really like, it's not helpful in the long run. But honestly, Shane, we should consider that, even if it's just for a bonus episode, because people would probably be into that. If you are.
Cool. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not going to force you to talk about it. Okay, sick. Okay. Remind me. Let's do it. But Shane, I think you were going to say something about what your skills were or lack thereof in this area.
Yeah. And I think I also want to, I guess, point out to a sign, like a warning sign for me. Like, y'all talked about the concept of time. Like, so when I start to lose track of time, when I start to lose my days, like that's kind of when I know I'm going to like start to like have a dissociative episode, right? As far as like what I try to do to prevent that, I don't think, like Shannon said, it's 100% preventable. Doing mindful activities, doing grounding activities, been really trying to focus on my breath work lately to help with that. When I'm in the moment, earlier, like I said, I took a bath, right, when I was having that depersonalization episode. So I would say, like, when you're having a really intense episode, anything that you can do to kind of get your nervous system to reset.
I mean, that's a great example of the tip skill, right? When you said I took a really hot bath, that's honestly great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you often find that you can see it coming?
I don't often realize it until I'm in the moment, but I've noticed that, like, the time it takes me to realize it has gotten kind of shorter and shorter. So, like, it doesn't take me nearly as long into the episode, I guess, right, to, like, realize that I'm experiencing it.
Interesting. So, Kat, what about you? Dissociation is such a huge component of your story that it feels hard to detangle it, right? Like, can you see it coming, or is it always there? Who knows, right?
Yeah, I'm literally sat here thinking, like you said, like Shannon said, like about watching different things and listening to different things and that kind of stuff. I think somebody is doing that all of the time. Like, I remember being at uni and having,
right,
like, to study, I would have to have like film and music, and sometimes also like be watching something about the thing I'm trying to study, and that was the only way I could like actually focus on what I was trying to do. But so it definitely, I think the only way I can describe it is like, like mist or like fog. Like, sometimes there is more and sometimes there is less. I think the tingliness and the fogginess, which fogginess isn't really a thing, but like it feels like the air starts to get thicker. And I can see that, I can feel that coming, or I can feel, it's not tunnel vision, but it's sort of like tunnel vision. It's like the edges of everything get really fuzzy.
Right.
And then in terms of what I do, so again, because it's really tangled with trauma, so like I can quite often recognize that there's something in whatever the situation is that is triggering that level of overwhelm. And then sometimes I can talk that through in a trauma related way that will help me calm down. I do the hot bath thing. I do walking, or if I can talk about how I'm feeling with someone, that helps sometimes. Just like fidget toys, sensory things like that.
It's a very interesting question because I don't know if I can really do much about it either. Truthfully, sleeping it off is probably the number one thing that I can do. And then otherwise just let it play out, generally speaking. Like, especially the not being able to move thing and just laying on the floor. I just literally play it out, let it play out. Like, there's nothing I can do. I can't move. It could be hours. I'm just going to lay here. I can't really feel anything anyway, so it's not uncomfortable.
Interesting that you like described like, yeah, this feeling or this sensation of not being able to move, right? Like when I get really intense depressive episodes, like I feel the same way, but it doesn't feel like, to me, I don't like associate it with dissociation.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think if I think to me, it's a very different feeling than the depressive side of that. The depressive side of that, I'm usually in bed already, if that makes sense. I haven't moved. I'm not up and about. I'm just frozen in a state of can't do, unmotivated to do, despair. As opposed to like I can't make myself do anything because I just am so miserable, and I will just lay there. But it's very similar, but so unique. I wish I could describe it better.
One is physical.
The dissociation side is a little bit like the dissociation one is tinglier, which I realize is not a helpful description. Whereas the depressive one is more, for me at least, more nothingness.
Does it feel like a weight?
Yes, but they kind of both do. But the depression one is more just like you're covered in a heavy blanket of something that you can't get off of you. Whereas the dissociation one is I can't move my body even if there's nothing on top of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We have an organization here called the Black Dog Institute, which is a depression charity or support organization. And I use that image of the black dog to explain what depression feels like to me. It's like every single thing I do, I've got this giant horse-sized dog holding on to the back of my clothes, pulling me backwards the entire time. Everything feels harder. Everything takes so much more energy to do. Everything feels heavier. Whereas, because the minute that Shane said that, I was like, yes, 100%. But then I think with dissociation, there are times where the feeling is similar, but my body can do the things. I'm just not a part of it. So I don't really have, apart from those couple of times where I've passed out, disassociation doesn't necessarily mean that I'm bedridden. I can, the majority of the time, do things and participate in life. I notice sometimes even in conversations with people that I'll just be completely gone and I'll be halfway through that conversation and I'll think, I have no fucking idea what you just said. And I've wrestled with this with that ADHD thing too. So I'd be interested in Shane's perspective on this, but because I think you're just inattentive. You're
not a good listener. Yeah.
You're not a good listener. You're not a good friend.
Right.
But I don't know even if it is lack of attention in some of the experiences I've had with it. An example this week being I had a bit of a rage outburst at a coworker. And after that happened, I was in a conversation with someone else. I was obviously still carrying all the emotion of me having this outburst with this guy. And it only lasted like a minute or two and there was some snappy words passed between us, but all of the feelings were still in my body. And I noticed maybe 20, 30 minutes later, I was having a conversation with a different coworker and she was 10 minutes into this thing that she was telling me about and I had not been present for any of it. And when I kind of caught that, I was able to fudge my way through it. But the feelings of the intensity of the interaction were all still in my body. My body was there having a conversation with her and kind of nodding along.
And probably even interacting, probably saying, yeah, totally. Yeah, I hear you.
And my brain wasn't present for either. So
do you find that too with your ADHD, Shane?
I'm sitting here thinking about it.
Shane's sitting there thinking, Shannon, you need to be medicated.
No, I have to say these conversations make me so fucking happy because every single time where I go, are we going to be able to talk for an hour about dissociation? And then we get into these conversations. I'm like, girl, what the hell did you think was going to happen? We could talk for 6 hours about this. Anyways, Shane, go ahead. You guys are just my favorite humans.
So I know I love you guys. Y'all are great.
Truly.
I think it's very hard to piece out between dissociation and ADHD. I find that being on medication has kind of helped me differentiate between the two. And also just sitting and thinking about it now, I'd have to say, I'd have to ask myself, when I'm checking out in these situations, whether it's in a conversation or at work, driving, what's my emotional activity level? If I'm calm and even keel and I'm kind of checking out a little bit, I think it's more so my ADHD, you know? But also my ADHD, I don't struggle a lot with the inattentive. I used to in school, I guess. I don't struggle so much now, but also I'm on medication now. So that's kind of hard for me to tell, but I really struggle with executive dysfunction. That's my biggest issue with my ADHD. So that's just how well can I organize my life? Not well, by the way.
You're like, spoiler alert, not well.
Spoiler alert, not well. But does that kind of help? Does that help you, Shannon? Is that's kind of like my perspective on it. And like I said, I haven't put a lot of thought into it until just now. So,
You know, Shannon, I feel like to me that lack of ability to listen is burnout in my life, especially in a workplace. Just being like, I just literally can't. I'm so distracted. And that to me is a big red flag of burnout. Because honestly, being an active listener is hard. Like, I have 4 podcast recordings today, and normally I only book 3 because I've learned the hard way that 4 is too many. Because it's actually, I adore you guys, but it is hard to be very actively listening and contributing to a conversation all the time, because you can't just flub it, you know? And I've just noticed for me that lack of ability, when I can get halfway through a conversation and be like, I literally don't know what we're talking about. That to me is a huge burnout signal.
That can go from like in a day or in a conversation losing like minutes at a time to like, if I think back to in my marriage when daily stress was higher, you know, I'd go to the supermarket and I'd stop the car and then like just start crying, and then it would be 5 hours later. And I don't
Right. I think
lose
you've talked
time
about
that
before.
intensely that often now. Thinking about depression versus dissociation is interesting. So for me, like if I'm depressed but I needed to go to the loo, that would be physically possible. If I'm flopped, it's not. I need to wait for that to, like, for that nervous system reset to happen. And that can be hours usually.
You know what's funny is I don't think I ever, when I'm in that state of just lying there doing literally nothing, like not doing literally nothing, unable to do anything because I'm so dissociated, I don't think I've ever had to pee, ever. Because I think my whole body is just not working.
Yeah, exactly.
Which just occurred to me.
Yeah. No.
Fuck, man. Brains are wild.
Yeah, no, totally. But I guess it's not important if you're running away from tigers and shit.
Exactly. Like, it is all really evolutionarily. But the difference is I stubbed my toe, not, you know, not because I'm being chased by a tiger.
Brain don't know that.
It's true. Like, can she not figure it out? It would be really helpful if she could fucking categorize some of the stressors in life and make them actually make any sort of sense at all.
I wonder how long it's going to take for our brains to catch up. Like, you know, like how long is it going to take for us to evolve?
Like society?
To, like, what life looks like, what modern life looks like.
Yeah. It's a great question.
Also,
I don't think the world will be here by then, Shane. I hate to say it. At the rate we're going, fuck.
Very good point.
Yeah.
No, and I think also like when it's all linked in with trauma and stuff, like it kind of is perfectly adapted for the environment it formed in.
Like, if you think about when the last time people in North America or Australia or Europe or wherever the hell you are, other than like maybe if you live in like a safari, when the last time we had to be afraid of being chased by a tiger? It's been a few hundred years for sure. And we're still terrified of it. There's an evolutionary psychology concept that I don't remember, and I'm not going to explain it well, but if anybody knows it, about how fascinating it is that like realistically things like cars are we should be way more afraid of cars than we are of lightning or
we're totally dissociated
tigers
from the reality of cars.
Totally.
I think about that sometimes.
Yet, so we haven't caught up.
Like driving around right next to like a big massive fire that could explode at any moment, and we're all just totally chill about it.
Yeah, or walking down the side of the road, or like any of those things. Yet we're scared of sharks. Okay,
this was exactly what I was going to say. So my father-in-law is petrified of sharks. Like, freaks out when anyone's in the water. He also doesn't swim.
I assume you have sharks in Australia.
We have massive sharks. Like, we have everything that kills you. And not only in the water, no, just everywhere, like in my front garden.
Absolutely not.
But my argument to him every time is when he's like, oh, you know, this place is really known for sharks, you shouldn't swim here. And I'm like, I'm 10 times more likely to be killed in the car on the way to this beach than I am by being bitten by a shark while I'm in that water. But it just, I suppose it depends what you're attached
to. Statistically, you're more likely to be killed by your oven or something. than like almost anything else.
A
think
cow,
falling-
I think, than a
Falling
shark.
coconuts or something. Falling
Yeah.
coconuts
Yeah.
more than sharks, or falling coconuts more than lightning,
die
or
because a
something
duck falls on
crazy.
their head.
A duck?
Apparently, ducks and geese have heart
Okay.
attacks mid-air sometimes.
Good to know.
And,
Stats
like,
are funny.
Sometimes that coincides with people being underneath them, and then people die because like high velocity goose lands on your head. Makes you want to live life.
Yeah, no kidding.
That makes me
Yeah.
feel much safer here in Australia, considering that I'm more likely to be killed by a duck
Right?
than the giant king brown snake that was out the front of our house the other day.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I hope
Meanwhile,
it's a duck that gets me.
I saw like a garter snake that was like the size of this Sharpie. Like, I mean, it was longer than the Sharpie, but like width of the Sharpie. And I have not seen a snake in the real life for a very long time. And I screamed and ran. That snake could not hurt me if it tried. You know what I mean? But yeah, I bet there's somebody that has thought that they have figured that out, Shane, around how many years it would take. But I truly don't think we'll be around.
I don't think
At
we'll
that
be
rate.
around
I think
either.
it's all relative.
Also,
Wait,
fun fact.
and sorry, fun fact, Shane.
Oh, my fun fact, when I was little, I used to pick up snakes all the time. Didn't matter what they were.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you guys have like rattlesnakes and stuff where you're from?
So the only like dangerous one that we have is copperheads. And I picked
Okay.
up a baby copperhead once, and my dad freaked out about it.
I bet.
Understandably so. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so funny. Okay, well, I feel like that's good to end dissociation on snakes and how long it's going to be until we realize that we should probably be scared of things that are actually going to kill us instead of evolutionary things from hundreds of years ago. So thank you all so much. This is the end of the 9 BPD symptoms, but as I mentioned, we're still going to do 2 more episodes about symptoms more generally. Thank you so much for listening to the Superfeeler podcast. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded territory of the Matsqui and Sumas First Nations. If you'd like to learn more about the Superfeeler podcast, share your story, or participate in the Superfeelers Club, which is our peer support group, it's totally free, virtual, and open to anyone who experiences intense emotions or has borderline personality disorder, please check out the link in our show notes or go to laurieedmondson.com. If you would like to support the show, we would very much appreciate it. There's an option to do monthly small donations at whatever denomination you'd like, and you get bonus content, extra resources, and extra connection to me throughout. That can be found on patreon.com/superfeeler, or again in the notes below. Thanks again, and have a great day.